it's Islam or Buddhism. There's something happening, whether it's Allah or God or Buddha. But the religion what really makes me think, because it is really open-ended, is Hinduism.
Yeah.
And they believe in reincarnation. And as far back as man has tried to trace, it actually petters out. There's no beginning of Hinduism. I haven't found it. There's no
Brahma.
No, Brahma is a god. You have Lord Krishna, Brahma. What's the other three? You have three spirits. But there isn't a definitive. It's not a monotheistic religion. So there is no. If you go into the British Museum, there's no beginning. They can only trace it back to about 7,000 or 8,000 years. No beginning. And they believe in reincarnation. Yet these other religions, they believe definitively in a time and a date, and then move forward from there.
The thing is, Hinduism has an origin story. They believe that there was a beginning to everything. However, they believe, like you correctly said, that things get recycled, there is reincarnation, but they also believe,
but
Stephen...
But isn't it definitive time? They haven't got a date in the calendar. They don't have a specific date of this coming or anything.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, a bit like, you could say, the universe or something. It's just the beginning. And it just happens. I haven't got one of these people. I haven't got a standout person who's come forward. So they've just got this religion what just goes back so many thousands of years, and this religion believes in reincarnation.
Right.
Strange. Do you think that's just a coincidence?
No. What I'm saying is you have a misconception of Islam. Like, you think that Islam has a founder. Out of curiosity, who do you think is the founder of Islam?
Well, the person who I know of is Muhammad.
Yeah.
It's Muhammad.
Yeah,
but
and
that was a definitive time, was it not? What century was that?
632 was when he passed away.
And then where was the point where the two brothers had a fallen out, and then the two religions went, or the two...
You're talking about the time of Prophet Adam, Habil and Qabil.
And then they went two separate ways.
They went two separate ways, yes.
The Sunni way and the...
That was 700.
But yeah, but the thing
they split. So
right.
is there not two different types of Islamic preachings there, or teachings?
Right. So that's a very good question. The thing is, it's not necessarily your fault or the fault of the viewers that sometimes they believe that Islam has a founder, because this is something that even is taught in the RE lessons in secondary school as well.
No, there's a messenger, wasn't there? There was a messenger to Muhammad.
Yeah, but Stephen,
there was no messenger to Hinduism. That's all I'm saying.
No, but that's the misconception that I'm trying to address. That a founder implies that it began at that time, but we don't believe that Islam began at the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him. We believe it began from the first person that was created, which was Prophet Adam. The first human that came, that's when Islam started. So we believe as Muslims that every prophet, approximately 124,000, they were all Muslims. They lived in different parts of the world and they had different, followers. Let me just finish this point, yeah? So they believed, they propagated monotheism, which was the belief in one God and following them as a messenger. It could be in the Indian subcontinent, it could be in Europe, it could be in Africa, it could be in China. However, again, as human beings, we are limited again to empiricism, like manuscripts. We're dependent on, again, testimony. Like, for example, whatever you learn in school, most of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're more than welcome to interject, most of what you learned was testimony, which means based on what somebody told you, but that somebody was trustworthy according to what your parents and the head teacher had told you. So when you were taught about science, you were told that the teacher is responsible, they are qualified, but you didn't go out in the field, you didn't dig and see the fossils, you didn't do the experimentation, you didn't go and speak to the philosophers.
Yeah, you could say that about anything though.
Not necessarily. I'll tell you why.
I read a fantastic book by Bill Bryson, The Short History of Anybody. Have anybody read that? The Short History of Everything.
Yeah, it's a very good book.
It's a very good book. And he does that. He goes and delves off and he finds out why we have all these answers in science. And unless I'm going around and becoming an expert in 25,000 different fields, then how would I've got to at some point trust some information, and of course you are correct. You can question what we actually learn in the British education system, because it's only a fraction of what they want you to know. But then that's when we're going to go into something else there.
Yeah, we'll put that on ice for now.
But everything's an opinion though. Everything. I mean, I'm pretty well read for somebody from up in the northeast of England, but I still haven't got all that knowledge. It's impossible for me. So at some point, of course, I'm going to have to trust some of this information
Agreed.
come towards me. The way that I mitigate that is by having multiple sources. I'll do podcasts, I'll read a book, I'll try and draw a general picture of all of these things, and that's what led me here today to listen to you.
Very good. I appreciate that, Stephen. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying this conversation. You're touching on topics that are so fascinating and so interesting. So now what you've hit upon is called testimony. Yeah. So, and what you've also done is you've said, in order for me to mitigate a mistake, I need to hear it from multiple sources. But what you haven't said is how you can now transcend that. Now, the way you can transcend that, maybe you might be able to transcend that one generation. Now, how would you transcend that? You now have to be dependent upon manuscripts. Now, how do I get a manuscript from Eurasia, and how old would it be? 100, 200 years old? Then how do I check its authenticity? Now, again, it will be reduced, and it has to come to a stop. Now, as in Islam, our testimony is completely different. Yeah, and this is what makes Islam's Quran veracious compared to any other book. And we have a three-pronged approach in which we prove the veracity of the Quran. Number one, the Quran has been preserved orally. Number two, it has been preserved by a live language. And number three, it has been preserved by manuscripts. Yeah. Now, what I mean by that is, if you compare all of the religions, Stephen, for example, let's look at the New Testament of the Christians. It's revealed in, well, Jesus spoke Aramaic, so who knows, but I mean, they're saying it's in Greek. Is Greek one of the top 5 languages? Is it spoken generally? No. Let's look at Hebrew of the Old Testament. Is it spoken generally? It's not. Let's look at Sanskrit of the Hindus. Is it spoken? Is it accessible? It's actually not accessible. Jesus' language of Aramaic is actually not accessible. Let's look at Arabic. It is. It's actually at number 4 or number 5. It actually fluctuates. It's a live language. Let's look at manuscripts. Muslims are the only ones who claim to have manuscripts of the original Quran. And we make the claim it's the same book that was there at the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Could you say that within the language, definitive fact that there's never ever been even a slang word introduced in that language ever? So there's never been an abbreviation ever in that language.
That's
because I have a friend who's from from Miami and he's Cuban, and I travel around the world with him. And he speaks Spanish, but his Spanish, and this is what he says the further south, it's a Spanish, but it's a totally different Spanish, and it's different to the Spanish what is spoken within Spain. So could you say with 100% clarity, and I do understand this, I have read that in order to preserve Islamic practices or the faith, that you read the Quran so that you know word by word to help preserve that. But can you say that there's no difference ever? There's never ever been even a different vowel or word or pronunciation or one bit of slang in that language?
very good.
Not one.
Very good.
As in no altering, because remember the universe evolved, everything. So
Yeah, and that's why, Stephen, I'm giving you a three-pronged approach. Number one is the living language, Arabic. Let's keep that to the side by now, yeah? Because Arabic itself is accessible to everybody, no worries. Brilliant, fantastic. Manuscript evidence and verbal evidence, yeah? Now, when it comes to something verbal, now, can you verify that since we've been here, the crowd has changed? There are brothers that have come, and some brothers have gone, and some brothers I don't know here, yeah? Now, I can tell you confidently, I can read a passage of the Quran, I can introduce something in this passage in front of you, and they'll be able to correct me. Okay. Qul huwallahu ahmad. Is that right or wrong? Qul huwallahu ahmad. Is that right or wrong? Qul huwallahu ahmad. Right or wrong? Wrong. What's the correct one? Qul huwallahu ahad. Qul huwallahu. So verbal preservation, this is a beautiful way in which the Quran is the only book that claims perfect preservation. In fact, In the Sunday Times, there was a poll that was done in 1997 of vicars. They asked vicars to regurgitate the 10 commandments, and 2 out of 3 vicars struggled. Now these are a few lines, but when it comes to the Quran, I think it's like 9,000 or 11,000 lines of the Quran, depending on, you know, how big the size of the Quran is. You've got Muslims as young as 6. In Palestine, there was a girl as young as 6 that has memorized it. And just like I've proven to you here, Stephen, my friend, this is why Islam is special, because Islam, or the religion from God, naturally is supposed to be accessible to everybody. I can't give a highfalutin argument that, you know, us academics can understand, but somebody else would struggle. It needs to be something that a rational individual can come and go, you know what, that makes sense. So in terms of a live language, we've proven that, okay, the Quran is something that's special. In terms of manuscript, the oldest manuscript that we have is actually located in this country, in Birmingham. It's actually 4 folios. You can you can Google this when you go home. There's a BBC article. It's actually one of the top 3 when you Google it. Oldest Quran manuscript. It's in this country. Muslims, it's not even a Muslim country. Birmingham, and the carbon dating was actually done by the University of Oxford. They've carbon dated it. And you can check, I've got cameras here. Everything that I'm saying, you can go home and you can check it. So it was carbon dated, and they did exactly what you said. They put the Quran that we have and they compared it with the folios. And Stephen, me standing here, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm telling you the founding that they found from, I think it's 645 AD. They said there is 100% word accuracy. You can check this yourself. That's the oldest manuscript. And you know what I've done? I've actually printed it out.
Are you happy that that manuscript is in the UK?
You know why I am happy with that? Is because some people, when I'm speaking to them, Stephen, when I ask them, where do you think this manuscript is? They're going to say, oh, it's probably in a Muslim country. Oh, it's probably, you guys are probably saying this and it's probably done by your guys. The fact that it's in a non-Muslim country, I think it objectively is in favor of a true seeker. It makes it easier for them to distinguish and say, you know what, okay, I can accept that. Now, let me ask you, Stephen, what do you think about these things that I've told you about how the Quran has been preserved as opposed to, as opposed to the other books? What do you think about what I've just said?
I think that's I took note of that. The fact that I've already acknowledged the fact that when you got these 3 brothers here and you use the whatever
a verse of the Quran, yeah.
And you were able to repeat that.
Yeah, brilliant.
So that preservation is there. But for me, I still then, as you were speaking about that, I start thinking about the original question, which was about before we ended up on camera, which was about religion and state, and how do we separate them two? And how we've got, like I say, we've got the scripture within the UK, which is a freedom-loving country, and a secular country. Now, when you were speaking about, you were originally speaking about homosexuality. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's up.
And you should also, obviously, freedom of speech. If you should use it in title to say that it's not something you agree with. So would you say that the way that Islam was taught in the UK, could that evolve and could that change? Is that somewhat you're scared of? Maybe.
I think what you've proven, Stephen, is that the way Islam is taught does need to be changed, because when you said yourself that the founder of Islam is the Prophet Muhammad, and then there's certain other misconceptions that gets put forward. Unfortunately and sadly, Orthodox Muslims are not consulted when it comes to the curriculum that we have, and when it comes to the relevant stuff that's actually being taught. The stuff that's taught is the sort of stuff that's in line with the liberal curriculum, which again constantly changes based upon the whimsical desires of the people.
But if you introduce something into a liberal society, then that will change. It's just, that's the way it happens. And the example what I give, I've got a partner who's Indian, right? And my family's from West India.
Nice.
West Indies. So maybe when they first came across, they wouldn't have wanted or acknowledged that relationship. But eventually, after each generation, it changes. And what think that her grandfather was going to come from India and come here and just keep it that way. It's pretty much impossible. Things have to change.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Things have to change at some point.
But
So you could have someone who studies Islam over here, and it might change for them.
But when you say something changes, Stephen, why would something change? Correct?
Because you've introduced that into a society what's liberal.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, if something...
I'm not saying this is right or wrong, by
Yeah,
the way.
no
We're
problem.
just saying, look,
Yeah, I appreciate
because I've
that.
seen this even within my personal relationship.
Yeah.
Things will change.
Yeah.
When people come here, things will change.
Yeah.
You can still have certain things, but it will change or deviate, or maybe it's come up with something even better.
Yeah. The thing is, but you've actually, I'm good, you actually stopped me and you finished your sentence because you said, what if we were to deviate and come up with something better? But that's assuming that you believe that the thing before is not better, that it is not the best it can be. And Stephen, think of it this way. I believe in God. I believe He is perfect in every facet. He's the most kind, the most merciful, the all knowledgeable. And if He's given me a book, He's given me a way of life, that way of life is the best. No Larry, no Mr. Singh, no Mr. Wong, no whatever can come and start telling me, oh yeah, by the way, why can't we add this in? Hang on, Mr. Wong or Mr. Larry or Mr. Singh. You're telling me that you have more insight than God? You're telling me you have more insight than
I'm not saying I think. I'm saying, when you introduce something into liberal society, it will change. Look, for instance, the capitalist system, right?
Yeah.
The West has had a hegemony over that for as long as possible. And all of a sudden, China's come up with a deviation. And that now actually threatens the hegemony of the West.
Yeah.
Because they've blended maybe state with capitalism.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing for some people.
Yeah.
Because maybe... Do you understand what I'm getting at?
I do.
So they've come up
It's
with a form of
interesting.
capitalism.
It's fascinating, yeah.
But their capitalism, I'm not saying better, but could be more successful.
May I just
But what we're saying, Stephen, is...
Or more. I don't know. I'm not saying...
I
I'm a
absolutely
capitalist,
understand.
I'm not saying I'm from the left or right.
Yes,
I'm just
yes.
giving that as an example.
Yeah, no, fine.
So when you drop something into some other area, it will evolve. Getting back to the question again, it will change. It will do what needs to be done. So yes, of course, we have them three principles, what you said, regarding
the preservation of the Quran.
But when you introduce whatever that is, of course you're going to have people who love God and who want to preserve something this way. But ultimately, there will always be other people. Just a bit like when we're talking about the general relativity and the quantum mechanics, they will always have to be an opposite. There'll always have to be something drawn on the other side. That's the way it is. If I was to say to you, up, what would you say, or what could you say? If I said up, down. If I said male,
if you said
male, female, strong, weak, dark, light, that's not some superficial, bullshit. That is the law and order of the universe.
Stephen, you're still falling in the same trap. And let me elucidate this trap in a way of an example. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. You have a big puzzle, a big puzzle that has been put together. As human beings,
but that puzzle doesn't have edges.
Let me give you an example. Let's stick with this for now, You have a big puzzle picture. As human beings, we'll see things like we'll see one piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, because as human beings, our faculties of seeing, understanding are limited.
Is there a fourth dimension? I had to say it. Is there a fourth dimension?
If there is a fourth dimension, God knows the fourth dimension, and He knows everything that exists, and bearing all that in mind, He's given us that there's laws.
You think there might be a fourth dimension?
You know what, Stephen? If there is a fourth dimension, I welcome it. If there's a fifth dimension, I welcome it. It doesn't change my belief in God. In fact, God and religion and science fit together. They actually marry each other. And that's why, and that's what we were also speaking in the golden age of Islam, a lot of these discoveries were done by Muslims. And a lot of scientific discoveries and sociological discoveries, the Muslims actually contributed to. And coming back to this example, it's exactly this, that as Muslims, as human beings, we see the pixel Allah sees the picture. So when a law comes down, the law takes everything into consideration, and then the law comes down.
But can we really see? Are we able to really see what's in front of us? That is
We're
the question,
not.
isn't it?
God
Can we see
is.
that?
But Stephen, God is. And that's why I started, and that's why we needed a beginning to determine if there is a creator or not, because that's integral, that if you believe in God, then you believe in objective morality. And if you believe in objective morality, which again, by the way, can't be proven by science or by liberalism, no liberal person can come in this park here right now on camera and say this is right and this is wrong.
100%. And just to go back to something, getting back to physics and science though.
Yeah.
Science does actually believe that if you had a pendulum, you know a pendulum? And you let it dangle, it would never ever be exactly down the middle. Do you know that? It cannot, physically, they cannot say that it is exactly dead centre. It has to be, even if it's a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth, to the left and to the right. They can't say that. What do you think that type of thing suggests?
Shall I tell you what that suggests? That suggests that pendulum had somebody to start it off to begin with, and
so then it keeps going, doesn't it? It goes on and goes on and goes on.
It keeps going.
How does he explain the changes that took place during the time of life of Prophet Muhammad? For example, alcohol was allowed, but alcohol became forbidden. That's a change, that's a societal change, because he saw that alcohol is destructive to the society. Ban it. There is a hadith, and from that time it's banned. So, in point of his question, should the humanity or society change at all? I mean, you said it's unchanged. You even brought the example of
it doesn't change, nothing changes.
Can I just answer the pendulum thing that you said? Because that was a good point.
That's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I just finish it? And then we can answer your friend's point. He got upset. But I didn't want to interrupt because we're having a conversation, isn't it? So the pendulum, you said it goes on forever. I would disagree, because by the laws of the same science that you're talking, eventually it would cause corrosion, and that metal would corrode, and eventually, based on the other variables that you have, that pendulum can actually be destroyed. And even if that destruction happens by our sun exploding, turning into a supernova or whatnot, it has an end date. No one in their right mind would say that pendulum will go on ad infinitum forever.
Yes, but
what do you think about that?
It can never ever be straight down the middle.
No problem. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. It's a good one.
No, I like that. You like that though, isn't it?
Yeah, I did like
yeah?
that. I like that.
You like that.
Look, I'm gonna have to get off, boys.
Oh, it was so nice speaking to you.
We touched some good things there, didn't we?
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Did you enjoy that one? Some good points raised, wasn't it?
Which part of Lincolnshire are you from?
Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle.
North East. We get forgetting about.
Stephen, I told you, you'll enjoy it, and if you want, you move away, you walk away, and stuff like that.
Where do I find you? Will you put this on YouTube?
Yeah, so it's going to be on a few channels. I don't know who started when. You could, I don't know which camera was here before. I don't know. I think Salam, yeah? It's going to be on Salam? But what does he type in? Because there's like 3 Salams, isn't it?
Oh, just put Salam, it'll come up.
No, it won't.
Okay, put Salam Speakers Corner.
Yeah, Salam Speakers Corner on that channel.
Will you be on there?
I will be on there speaking to you. My channel is different. Yeah, it's called Smile2jannah. Smile2jannah means smile to paradise. You like that,
You know
yeah?
this? You're gonna love this. You know
God.
what one of my jobs actually is?
God.
Working for a company called the Paradise Challenge. And
What
have a guess
the
what that
chances?
is? Have a guess what that is?
What a chance.
It is. It's a photo shoot for supermodels, and I do the security and fitness. So I do smile when I'm at Paradise. That is actually the truth, you know.
That's awesome, bro. Respect that, bro. And respect this conversation. And bro, so I'm on there. If you want to leave a comment or message me on Instagram, or even if you want to come on Speaker's Corner and have another convo, you're always more than welcome. So Salam, S-A-L-A-M. So that's Salam Speaker's Corner. They've got loads of videos. My one is Smile2jannah. Smile to paradise.
How do you spell the last word?
Jannah, J-A-N-N-A-H.
Smile2jannah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're doing good there, you know.
We done excellent, bro. Especially the science thing was
I'll
fantastic.
have a look. I'll have another go with you sometime.
Yeah. Brilliant.
How to live in a society.
I know, we went into all sorts. Went into
That's what I'm saying.
dimensions and everything. We've pulled some good shit out there.
Yeah, bro. A lot that needs unpacking. It can't, like, if I give you a half-assed answer.
Have you got a podcast or anything? No.
I don't know. Just on that channel, you see me discussing all sorts of things, but I do it in a humorous, like in a relaxed kind of way, isn't it? Just like we've had a conversation, just like that.
This one? Yes, thank you. What's your channel called?
حجر الأسود.
What's your channel?
حجر الأسود.
Love, Smile2jannah.
He'll get that. He'll get the laugh. There's a channel called Sam Dawa as well. That might be easy for you to remember. Sam and then Dawa.
Sam bin Dawa.
You probably forget that though. The Dawa bit. Jump.
Oh, I didn't even know this, but I could go one more on it left. Right.
What do you want to do?
I'm telling you, these guys, I'm trying to give them their mics, bro.